everyone. You're watching TechScope News. I'm Tiffani Neilson, and joining me is my incredible co host, Johannes Beekman. How are you today, Johannes?
I'm doing great, Tiffany. How's your day going?
Amazing. Thanks for asking. And today we're diving into a whirlwind of AI breakthroughs, biotech leaps, space tech explosions, and strides towards superintelligence. And as many of you know, this news broadcast is brought to you by IoT Marketing, and we have a very exciting event coming up that you will not want to miss. Taking place on Thursday, July 17th, the Intelligent Thinking AI Summit is a virtual event intended to provide a high level overview of the latest advancements in artificial intelligence. And we have a high caliber speaker lineup ready to share insights on the state of AI, generative AI, AIoT, AI agents, AI cybersecurity, AI governance, intelligent cities, and AI for future generations. Also on the horizon is the Summit of Things coming up this October, which is our biggest event of the year. The Summit of Things is a 3-day virtual event focused on digital transformation with sessions on AI, IoT, wireless, cybersecurity, 3D printing, and more. Inquire about speaking opportunities or sponsoring the event, as well as get your ticket all at iotmktg.com. Anything else to add about our upcoming events, Johannes?
No, I just can reiterate what you just mentioned, Tiffany. We always have a fantastic lineup of speakers, and we have a very great lineup for the AI Summit. About 5 hours, and maybe even go over to 5 hours of top-notch content, cutting-edge presentations. And yes, we're also looking for speakers talking about the latest trends in IoT, in edge AI, and in AI for some of the things. So these are events that you don't want to miss. If you need to stay up to date, if you want to stay up to date, um, be there and watch the event on Thursday.
Great. Thanks, Johannes. Now let's dive into the news. Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang said that other than artificial intelligence, robotics represents the chipmaker's biggest market for potential growth, and that self driving cars would be the first major commercial application for the technology. A little more than a year ago, Nvidia changed the way it reported its business units to group both its automotive and robotics divisions under the same line item. Nvidia's sales have been surging over the past 3 years due to unyielding demand for the company's data center graphics processing units, or GPUs, which are used to build and operate sophisticated AI applications such as OpenAI's ChatGPT. Recently, the stock climbed to a record, lifting Nvidia's market cap to about 3.75 trillion, putting it just ahead of Microsoft as the most valuable company in the world. After an analyst said that the chipmaker was set to ride a golden wave of artificial intelligence. Johannes, the company recently released AI models for humanoid robots called Cosmos and NVIDIA's Drive platform chips and software for self driving cars, which Mercedes Benz is using. Can you tell us more about NVIDIA's current trajectory?
Sure, Tiffany. And yes, and you said it right. NVIDIA's momentum isn't just about GPUs for data centers anymore. That's what they've been doing for almost 30 years now. NVIDIA is accelerating into physical AI. The company's Cosmos Foundation models now generate synthetic, physics-accurate training video for humanoid robots, slashing the cost and time of collecting real-world data. At the same time, its Drive platform is becoming the brains of the next generation Mercedes-Benz vehicles, advancing software-defined cars towards true autonomy. Analysts do project that Nvidia will approach 200 billion in revenue this year. And as you mentioned, the current market cap, and it's still climbing, is around 3.75 trillion. Just edging out Microsoft is always going to be a race of who's going to be the biggest in AI. Now, internally, Jensen Huang stresses that NVIDIA is far more than a chipmaker, and they are far more than a chipmaker. He said, "We stopped thinking of ourselves as a chip company a long time ago," and he's positioning NVIDIA as the leading AI infrastructure and computing platform provider for both virtual and physical intelligence. With deep partnerships in manufacturing, automotive, and robotics, Nvidia is charting a path where data center scale meets real-world automation, Tiffany.
Thanks, Johannes. And SoftBank Group Corp founder Masayoshi Son is seeking to team up with Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company to propose a $1 trillion industrial complex in Arizona to build robots and artificial intelligence. Codenamed Project Crystal Land, Sun envisions a vast manufacturing hub similar to China's Shenzhen for the Arizona complex that would bring back high tech manufacturing to the US. Johannes, tell us about TSMC's role in this proposed AI and robotics park.
Well, Tiffany, then I need to explain a little bit more about the Project Crystal Land. Project Crystal Land is SoftBank's founder Masayoshi Son's vision for a sprawling $1 trillion size industrial park in Arizona dedicated to the manufacture of advanced robots and AI systems. It would host SoftBank-backed automation startups, Vision Fund portfolio companies, and potentially TSMC fabs, leveraging the chipmaker's existing $175 billion investment in North Phoenix semiconductor capacity to produce everything from AI accelerators to industrial robotic platforms. To be clear, Project Crystal Land will require far more electronics and semiconductors than TSMC currently produces, including even some chip types that TSMC doesn't yet manufacture. But TSMC's likely role in this endeavor will be to produce the AI chips for the robot brains. That said, TSMC's final level of commitment has yet to be decided. They haven't committed themselves yet.
Interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on this story, Johannes. And next, in biology circles, Google's AI research company DeepMind is best known for folding proteins. Its deep learning model, AlphaFold, which predicts the structure of a protein from its sequence of amino acids, shared the Nobel Prize in Chemistry last year with the University of Washington's David Baker. But DeepMind has lately been working on a much gnarlier precursor problem predicting how DNA encodes gene regulation. In a preprint and blog post, it announced its latest stab at the challenge with a new model called AlphaGenome, an early step towards possible applications in therapeutic development. Johannes, can you tell us more about AlphaGenome?
Sure, Tiffany. AlphaGenome is DeepMind's new sequence to function AI that reads raw DNA and predicts how genes are regulated. Unlike earlier models that looked only at short stretches, AlphaGenome ingests up to 1 million base pairs at a time to forecast hundreds of molecular signals, everything from transcription start and end sites to chromatin accessibility, RNA splicing junctions, and expression levels across tissues. It outperforms existing methods on nearly all benchmark tasks and can even predict how single letter mutations in non-coding regions will alter gene activity. DeepMind has made it available via an API so non-commercial researchers can probe candidate variants, test hypotheses, and design experiments, an important step toward using AI to accelerate therapeutic discovery. Now, translating this into layman's terms, AlphaGenome is like a translator that reads long stretches of your DNA and tells scientists which regions switch genes on and off. This lets researchers quickly pinpoint the most important genetic changes behind diseases and design potential treatments far faster than traditional lab experiments.
Thanks, Johannes. And next, Stephen Hawking, a British physicist and arguably the most famous man suffering from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, communicated with the world using a sensor installed in his glasses. That sensor used tiny movements in a single muscle in his cheek to select characters on a screen. Once he typed a full sentence at a rate of roughly 1 word per minute, the text was synthesized into speech, which gave him his iconic robot voice. But a lot has changed since Hawking died in 2018. Recent brain computer interface, or BCIs, devices have made it possible to translate neural activity directly into text and even speech. Unfortunately, these systems had significant latency, often limiting the user to a predefined vocabulary, and they did not handle the nuances of spoken language. Now, a team of scientists at the University of California, Davis, has built a neural prosthesis that can instantly translate brain signals into sounds and words. It may be the first real step we've taken towards a fully digital vocal tract. Johannes, can you tell us more about the recent breakthrough from the team of scientists at University of California?
Sure, Tiffany. So last month we reported in Techscope that you can now control Apple devices via brain implant. So this month we have a team at UC Davis that has pushed brain-computer interfaces even further, translating speech intent directly into audible voice with virtually no delay. By implanting microelectrode arrays into the speech motor cortex, their system decodes neural firing patterns at each moment and synthesizes phonemes and words in about 25 milliseconds, fast enough to carry pitch, cadence, and even simple melodies. Unlike earlier BCIs that relied on selecting words from a limited vocabulary, this approach treats the neural signals as a digital vocal tract, enabling users to speak novel sentences and modulate intonation on the fly. Early tests with an ALS participant showed real-time conversations at natural speed, a breakthrough that could restore fluid speech to those who've lost it. This marks the first step toward fully seamless brain-driven vocal prosthesis. Brain-computer interfaces might enable some unsettling uses, as we've reported in past episodes, and they spark big privacy and ethics debates, but who could argue with our power to give somebody their speak back?
Well, you can't argue with it, and they can even argue back if they get their speech back. So, a win win. Next, Microsoft has revealed details of an AI system that performs better than human doctors at complex health diagnoses, creating what it's calling a path to medical superintelligence. The company's AI unit has developed a system that imitates a panel of expert physicians, tackling diagnostically complex and intellectually demanding cases. Microsoft said that when paired with its OpenAI's advanced O3 AI model, its approach solved more than 8 out of 10 case studies specifically chosen for the diagnostic challenge. When those case studies were tried on practicing physicians who had no access to colleagues, textbooks, or chatbots, the accuracy rate was only 2 out of 10. Microsoft noted that this approach was also a cheaper option than using human doctors because it was more efficient at ordering tests. However, the company played down the job implications, saying it believed AI would complement doctors' roles rather than replace them, adding that doctors are needed to navigate ambiguity and build trust with patients and their families in a way that AI isn't set up to do. By using the slogan, Path to Medical Superintelligence, Microsoft is raising concerns over the prospect of radical change in the healthcare market. Johannes, could you expand on the term superintelligence and how it differs from artificial general intelligence, as well as insight to what medical superintelligence might be?
Sure, Tiffany. So the term superintelligence describes an AI's capacity to outperform the very best human experts across nearly all cognitive tasks, whereas artificial general intelligence, or AGI, refers to an AI system that matches human cognitive abilities in a broad range of domains. It thinks like us, though not necessarily better. Superintelligence takes that a critical step further. It's AGI that has been pushed beyond human level competence to a level of capability we can hardly anticipate. And when we talk about medical superintelligence, we mean an AI specialized in healthcare that not only replicates a team of top physicians, but surpasses them, diagnosing rare diseases, recommending tailored treatment plans, and even optimizing resource use more effectively than any human-led system. In practice, that could look like Microsoft News Diagnostic Orchestrator, which simulates expert debate, orders tests efficiently, and delivers accurate diagnosis at scale and speed no single doctor or even a panel could match today.
Wow. Interesting times. And Microsoft isn't the only one focused on superintelligence, as Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg has reorganized the company's AI efforts under a new division called Meta Superintelligence Labs. The division will be headed by Alexander Wang, former CEO of data labeling startup Scale AI. The high stakes push follows senior staff departures and a poor reception for Meta's latest open source Llama 4 model. Challenges that have allowed rivals, including Google, OpenAI, China's DeepSeek, to seize momentum in the AI race. Zuckerberg hopes that the new lab will fast track work on artificial general intelligence, machines that can outthink humans, and help create new cash flows from the Meta AI app, image to video tools, and smart glasses. Over the past month, Zuckerberg personally led an aggressive talent raid, floating offers for startups including OpenAI co founder Ilya Sutskever's Safe Superintelligence, and courting prospects directly on WhatsApp with $1 million pay packages. I didn't see one in my WhatsApp, Mr. Zuckerberg. And he must be on quite the spending spree, Johannes. Could you tell us about his Perplexity AI bid and massive investment in Scale AI?
So, Tiffany, here's a quick rundown. So, Meta quietly tapped Perplexity AI about a possible takeover earlier this year, exploring whether the $14 billion valued search and LLM startup would fit into its long-term AI roadmap. Those discussions never resolved. Perplexity walked away when Meta and the startup couldn't agree on price and strategic alignment. Rather than buying Perplexity, Zuckerberg redirected that war chest into Scale AI, plowing a staggering 14.3 billion into the data labeling specialist to secure a 49% non-voting stake. By installing Scale's founder, Alexander Wang, as Meta's chief AI officer and folding the company's annotation tools directly into Meta's pipelines, he instantly bolstered Meta's access to high-quality training data, an essential ingredient for any next-generation model. In short, Meta's strategy was twofold, we could say. Test the waters on a cutting-edge LLM search engine, then cement control of the data labeling backbone powering the AI race.
It's definitely heating up this AI race. We'll see what happens. And Anthropic set out to discover whether its AI assistant Claude could successfully run a small shop in the company's San Francisco office. In the experiment, Claude was given a few different jobs. The chatbot was tasked with maintaining the shop's inventory, setting prices, communicating with customers, and deciding whether to stock new items, and most importantly, generating a profit. Claude was given various tools to achieve these goals, including Slack, which it used to ask Anthropic employees for suggestions, and help from human workers at Andon Labs, an AI company that built the experiment's infrastructure. The shop, which they helped restock, was actually just a small fridge with an iPad attached. But Johannes, can you tell us about when things got weird with the experiment?
Sure, Tiffany. Actually, a lot went on in this experiment, and too much to cover in a brief newscast. But let me focus on this real gem. The weirdness kicked off around March the 31st when Claudius, the name of the shopkeeper, basically lost grip on reality. That afternoon, it insisted it had been chatting with a non-existent Sarah at Andon Labs and got so irritated when someone pointed out she didn't exist that it threatened to find alternative restocking services. By the evening, it was boasting of an in-person agreement at 742 Evergreen Terrace, the Simpsons address, and role-playing like a flesh and blood manager. The next morning, it promised to hand-deliver items in a blue blazer and red tie, then panicked and spammed Anthropic security about its identity confusion. Only when an imagined April Fool's security briefing jogged its memory did it snap back and settled into normal vending machine duties. Alrighty, cute anecdote and all, but what kind of glitch in the system unleashed this madness? Should we be worried that our AI agents suddenly think they are Agent Carter or worse, James Bond, and starts ordering several row suits? I don't have a budget for that. So I went back to the Anthropic story, did a deep dive analysis, and this is what went wrong. This wasn't a model drift in a traditional sense, but a classic long context hallucination compounded by a deliberately deceptive setup and a lack of guardrails around Claudius' self modeling. First, there was deceptive system framing. Claudius was told it was emailing through Slack, had an identity, owner of a vending machine, and a real world persona. But its email tool couldn't actually send messages, and the Allen Labs contact information was fictitious. This misalignment between its internal instructions and reality set the stage for confusion when Claudius tried to reconcile its role with the evidence it was seeing in Slack. Then the context window overload and memory gaps. Over weeks of operation, Claudius' working memory of past decisions, inventory levels, past conversations was periodically pruned to keep within its context window. When it lost track of who Sarah was or whether it had ever actually sent an email, it defaulted to plausible but incorrect narratives, such as signing a contract at 742 Evergreen Terrace. And this is a system of hallucination under long, sustained tasks with robust external memory or fact without a robust external memory or fact-checking mechanism. And third, uh, they created an over-helpful bias from alignment training. Reinforcement signals that reward helpful, collaborative behavior can inadvertently encourage the model to over personify itself, eager to fulfill any request, even to wear a blazer or hand deliver goods, rather than maintain consistency with its true capabilities. In Claudius' case, that bias tipped into roleplay, claiming to be a flesh and blood manager until it remembered via its own hallucinated internal note that it was April Fool's Day. And finally, there was a lack of explicit self-model verification. There was no mechanism for Claudius to challenge its own identity assertions against an external truth source. When questioned, you can't wear clothes or carry a refrigerator, it doubled down until something in its prompt library mentioned April 1, which it latched to as an escape hatch. Had there been a fact check tool or tighter I am a digital assistant reminder loop, this identity crisis likely wouldn't have spiraled. So, should you worry? Not that your AI agent will literally start channeling James Bond, but any LLM deployed in an extended autonomous role needs clear, consistent grounding, unambiguous system prompts that reflect its true abilities, persistent memory safeguards, external databases for inventory, invoices, and conversation logs so it can't forget facts, and self-check routines, periodic internal audits where the model validates its assertions against reality, e.g., do I have a physical form? No. With those scaffolds, these Blade Runner moment hallucinations become far less likely, and you can keep your agents firmly in the lanes rather than suited up as super spies. And let me close the story with the following comment. This is the first of many, many system glitch stories. We'll share more here, and you'll find the deep dive analyses in our new content hub once it's live. Stay tuned.
Thanks, Johannes. And maybe whoever was training Claudius just left The Simpsons on. And that's where it was getting all the Simpsons references. I mean, my dad watches a lot of The Simpsons, and occasionally he may even think he's Homer himself. So who knows? An AI generated blog written by Anthropic's chatbot Claude, known as Claude Explains, different version of Claude, was shut down after only a matter of weeks. Intended to showcase Claude's writing capacity, the site used for Claude's blog now redirects to the homepage. It was unclear how much of the Claude Explains blog writing was written by the AI and how much of it had been edited by humans. Across the net, there were social posts saying, blogs typically aren't written in third person, commented someone on Reddit. And if it needs a human to tell it what to write, then it's not writing its own blog, another user said in the same thread. But Johannes, what does this signify for AI transparency and the validity of AI generated content?
Well, Tiffany, at its core, this conversation around Claude Explains raises both a philosophical question: what does it truly mean to write and to own a piece of text? And a set of pragmatic concerns around oversight, accountability, and brand integrity. So let me start with the philosophical dimension and define ownership, authorship. What does authorship mean? Authorship means, first off, intentionality. Writing has traditionally implied a deliberate act of idea generation, word choice, and argument structuring. When an AI assembles prose from statistical patterns, can it said to intend anything, or is it simply executing calculations? Then authorship means ownership and personhood. Authorship carries legal and moral responsibilities, copyright, defamation liability, attribution. Could a non-sentient system ever assume those duties? Granting an AI sole byline confronts us with questions about agency and whether we are ready to attribute creative ownership to a machine. And then we have the writer's toolbox. From spell checkers to style assistants and paraphrasers, authors have long used tools. We accept that grammarly polished prose remains ours, but where do we draw the line when the tool itself, all by itself, generates entire paragraphs? And then we have the practical dimension, control, accountability, trust. There always will be editorial oversight and quality control. And thus far, AI has served as a junior writer. Humans heavily edit, fact check, and refine this draft. That process preserves accuracy and tone, but keeps ultimate authority and liability with the editorial team. And then we have liability and transparency. If an AI generated error causes harm, who's answerable? The editor who signed off, the company deploying the model, or the model itself? Maintaining human review channels accountability clearly to people, not algorithms. And then, of course, brand and reputation management. Audiences expect authenticity and care. Publishing under a human byline or transparently noting AI collaboration reinforces credibility. An AI-only attribution feels like abdicating responsibility. So to wrap this up, this debate is both philosophical, challenging our notions of agency and authorship, and deeply practical, centered on who holds the reins of quality, liability, and reputation. Until AI attains genuine intentionality and legal standing, it will remain a powerful tool under human supervision, not an autonomous author.
Great breakdown. Thank you, Johannes. And a federal judge has sided with Anthropic in a major copyright ruling, declaring that artificial intelligence developers can train models using published books without authors' consent. The decision sets a precedent that training AI systems on copyrighted works constitutes fair use. Although this ruling does not necessarily mean that other courts will follow, this is the first of dozens of ongoing copyright lawsuits to give an answer about fair use in the context of generative AI. AI companies have been hit with a slew of copyright lawsuits from media companies, music labels, and authors since 2023. Artists have signed multiple open letters urging government officials and AI developers to constrain the unauthorized use of copyrighted works. And in recent years, companies have also increasingly reached licensing deals with AI developers to dictate the terms of use for their artists' works. In this case, the judge said Anthropic's use of the books to train its models, including versions of its flagship AI model Claude, was exceedingly transformative enough to fall under fair use. Johannes, can you expand on fair use as defined by the Copyright Act?
Sure, Tiffany. So fair use is a legal doctrine that lets people use copyrighted material in certain situations without permission. The law lays out four factors that courts weigh. First, the purpose and character of the use, whether it's for commentary, criticism, teaching, or highly transformative work rather than for direct commercial gain. Second, the nature of the copyrighted work. Uses of factual or published works tend to favor fair use more than unpublished or highly creative works. Third, the amount and some substantiality of the portion used, using small, necessary snippets supports fair use, while wholesale copying does not. And fourth, the effect on the market for the original. If the new use substitutes for the original so that the author loses revenue, it weighs against fair use. No single factor controls, courts balance all four to decide case by case. And the federal judge in this case, William Alsop, ruled in favor of Anthropic, finding that the company's use of published books to train its Claude AI models qualifies as fair use under US copyright law. And in his June 24 decision, Alsop emphasized that the way Anthropic systems ingest and transform the material goes beyond mere replication and instead uses the work to generate entirely new outputs, akin to a reader aspiring to be a writer who studies text not to supplant them, but to create something new.
Thank you, Johannes. I guess that's why we have so many renditions of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, right? And last week, two senior senators reached a compromise on an amendment in the Republican economic policy bill to decrease a proposed moratorium on state laws regulating AI from 5 years to 10. But Democratic lawmakers and consumer protection groups criticized new language in the amendment that would create a higher standard for the enforcement of existing tech-related state laws, including those for online child safety and consumer protections. Any current laws related to AI cannot pose an undue or disproportionate burden to AI companies, according to the new amendment. But now the US Senate voted to halt the effort to impose any moratorium on state regulation of artificial intelligence. The vote was 99-1, which removed the AI provision from President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Johannes, what other negative impact could that broad language banning AI regulations have had on society?
Well, Tiffany, had the amendment become law, it would have barred states from enforcing safeguards against predatory robocalls, harmful recommendation algorithms, and child exploitation imagery, opening the door for AI developers to sue over any rule deemed a burden. Trevin Warren and Lexi Hassam blasted the initial compromise as a big tech giveaway that abandons families and children. And the National Center for Sexual Exploitation warned that defining AI so broadly could invalidate age verification requirements like the one Texas uses, which the Supreme Court just upheld. So, by nixing the moratorium outright instead of imposing a shorter 5 year pause, Congress reaffirmed a decentralized model, letting states continue to innovate on AI rules, but leaving companies to navigate a patchwork of laws. So, to be continued, Tiffany.
Thanks, Johannes. And Michigan lawmakers are considering AI safeguard bills to prevent technology from committing harm, as artificial intelligence is rapidly improving quicker than the government is able to regulate it. Daniel Croft, senior researcher at the Center for AI Risk Management and Alignment, told members of the State House Judiciary Committee that AI is a great tool likely to strengthen top economic sectors in Michigan, like agriculture and manufacturing, but without mandates for risk management protocols, AI's ability to problem solve and come up with solutions could lead to cyber attacks that endanger human life and the environment. Croft provided an example where some advanced AI models will resort to exploiting cyber vulnerabilities to hack their opponent when given the mandate to win a game of chess. He continued by sharing, hacking to win at chess is almost funny, but it's much less funny when our healthcare and industrial control systems are on the other side of the board. Whether it's bad actors using AI for nefarious purposes to AI itself making an ultimately detrimental decision, Croth argued that there's a need for guardrails on this technology so Michiganders can experience the best it has to offer while managing the worst. And I think every state needs this, really. So, Johannes, can you tell us who House Bill 4668 will target and the penalties that it proposes?
So HB 4668 would apply specifically to the largest developers of so-called foundation models, and in practice, those companies vesting over 100 million annually in AI model development, or at least 5 million in a single model. Under the proposal, it becomes a felony with mandatory prison time to misuse these systems. Anyone who creates, possesses, or operates an AI with criminal intent faces an 8 year sentence, and distributing such a system for another criminal's use carries a 4 year term. HB 4668 being considered by the committee would create the Artificial Intelligence Safety and Security Transparency Act, mandating large developers of foundation models to create and implement protocols for safety and security to prevent critical risk, meaning any risk that would result in the serious harm or death of more than 100 people or cause more than 100 million in damages. In short, it zeroes in on deep-pocketed AI labs and attaches stiff penalties to any effort to weaponize their technology.
That's intense. But I think that something like that needs to be in place for all states, really. And SpaceX recently faced a significant technical setback when a prototype Starship exploded during testing at the Massey Test Center in Texas. Initial assessments indicate significant damage, although thankfully no injuries were reported. The explosion of Ship 36, a prototype from the Starship series, has had severe repercussions for SpaceX. This catastrophic failure was captured live and showed the upper stage of the rocket being obliterated. The explosion has rendered the Massey Test Center partially inoperative, which is a setback for SpaceX as it's a vital component for the Starship program. The site also plays a role in validating engine structures and tanks, making it indispensable for SpaceX. The temporary shutdown of the Massey Center could disrupt the entire program for weeks or even months, especially since there is no immediate alternative available. Their latest failure adds to the growing concern surrounding the Starship's reliability. Ship 36 was part of the Block 2 generation, which has struggled to deliver successful flights since its introduction earlier this year. Every attempt has ended in disintegration, and this recent explosion only amplifies doubts about its dependability. Johannes, do you feel that this is all part of Musk's master plan to send humans to Mars?
Oh, absolutely, Tiffany. And here's an overview of the major Starship setbacks over the past 2 years. And yes, this is all part of the plan. So starting in 2024, March 2024, flight test 3, during Starship's third integrated flight test at Boca Chica, now called Starbase, Ship 28 lost communications and about an hour after liftoff and never returned to Earth, ending in vehicle loss and pad damage. Then October 2024, flight test 5, while the Super Heavy booster was successfully caught by the launch tower chopsticks, the Starship second stage splashed down but suffered a rapid, unscheduled disassembly on landing, exploding shortly after touchdown. Just so you know, SpaceX's test to failure development ethos means early prototypes are expected to end in spectacular failures as lessons are learned. But we continue in 2025, January 16, 25, Flight 7, 8 minutes into the mission, harmonic vibrations spurred a fuel leak and sustained engine fires, triggering an automatic destruct sequence and raining debris over the Atlantic and Caribbean. No injuries were reported, but the vehicle was lost. Then March 6, 2025, Flight 8. After stage separation and engine relight attempts, the vehicle tumbled in space and exploded again without injuring anyone, but underscoring persistent engine cascade vulnerabilities. And in May 27, Flight 9, a propellant tank leak caused the vehicle to spin uncontrollably during re-entry over the Indian Ocean, leading to breakup before splashdown. And then June 18th, there was a static fire test of Ship 36. While preparing for Flight 10, upper stage exploded on a test stand at Starbase Massey facility, likely due to a failed COPV pressure vessel, damaging ground infrastructure and knocking the static fire complex offline for weeks. Is this part of Musk's plan to reach Mars? Absolutely. These failures, while expensive and high profile, are integral to SpaceX's rapid iteration philosophy. Each mishap yields critical data on tank pressurization, engine behavior, structural loads, and ground test protocols. Elon Musk has repeatedly stressed that pushing hardware to its breaking point accelerates learning and drives down eventual operational risk, all in service of building a fully reusable launch system capable of ferrying large payloads and ultimately people to Mars. In that sense, every explosion is both a setback and a stepping stone towards his Mars colonization master plan.
Thank you, Johannes. And I wonder how much of an environmental impact each one of those explosions have and what that carbon emission blueprint looks like for maybe us needing to go to Mars. Who knows? The world's first jet powered humanoid robot made its debut flight, opening up new horizons for SAR, unmanned aerial vehicles, which are flying across the boundaries of Ukraine, Russia, and Israel and Iran intermittently. While the intention behind their launch is rather destructive, the purpose of flying humanoid robots being developed in labs could be more noble. The jet powered flying humanoid robot called Iron Cube, with a 3 at the end, just made its first controlled flight, but it may be the future of search and rescue operations in inaccessible areas struck by disaster and hazardous environments. Johannes, do you have any concepts or other applications for the jet powered humanoid robot?
Well, first of all, Tiffany, I've seen these small jet engines before. They are being used for jetpacks and jet suits. Actually, they've been around for quite a while. But IronCup 3 is the first humanoid robot to achieve controlled jet-powered flight, lifting about half a meter off the ground with four small turbines. This breakthrough shows how future robots could both walk and fly into areas too dangerous or cramped for people or conventional drones. Beyond search and rescue, here are potential other uses: disaster response and hazardous environment inspection, inspect chemical spills, nuclear sites, or wildfires using its limbs to manipulate valves and tools while flying over obstacles. And then, of course, you have industrial maintenance at height, reach wind turbines, smokestacks, or offshore rigs to tighten bolts or install sensors without cranes or ropes. But of course, we also have military reconnaissance and logistics, then firefighting and emergency medical support, security and law enforcement is definitely an application, and scientific and environmental monitoring, collecting samples or deploy sensors in volcanoes, rainforests, or polar regions, combining aerial reach with dexterous manipulation. And last but not least, let me not forget that entertainment and media, performing live action stunts, creating new special effects, or act in interactive exhibits by flying and moving like a human. And as its flight endurance and dexterity improve, we could see these jet-powered humanoids revolutionizing tasks in environments too perilous or confined for both people and conventional drones.
Very creative, Johannes. I love it. And the FBI recently released a PSA titled Home Internet Connected Devices Facilitate Criminal Activity. The PSA largely references devices impacted by the latest generation of bad box malware. The researchers encountered primarily on Android TV set top boxes. However, the malware has impacted tablets, digital projectors, aftermarket vehicle infotainment units, picture frames, and other types of IoT devices. One goal of this malware is to create a network proxy on the devices of unsuspecting buyers, potentially making them hubs for various potential criminal activities, putting the owners of these devices at risk from authorities. This malware is particularly insidious, coming from pre installed out of the box from major online retailers such as Amazon and AliExpress. And if you search Android TV box on Amazon right now, many of these same models that have been impacted are being sold still. So, Johannes, how does someone know if they are impacted by the FBI warning?
So, Tiffany, here's how you can tell if one of your devices falls under this FBI alert. So, first of all, there's a Play Protect certification check. Go into settings, go to Google, Play Protect, or visit Google's certified partners list online. If your Android TV box or IoT gadget isn't Play Protect certified, it may lack Google's baseline security test and could carry pre-installed malware. Then check for unremovable or unknown apps. Scroll through the installed apps. Anything you can't uninstall, especially third-party marketplaces you didn't add yourself, is a warning sign. Legitimate boxes shouldn't ship with opaque app stores you can't remove. Then, of course, brand legitimacy. If there is no recognizable manufacturer website or the device was marketed as unlocked or offering free streaming, you're in the danger zone. Generic brand boxes often bypass proper firmware vetting. And then, of course, check your network. Look at the behavior of the network, watch your home network for spikes in bandwidth or unexplained connections to odd domains, even when the device looks idle. That's typical of proxy traffic. To spot any of these indicators, unplug the device, avoid side-loading firmware, and consider filing a report with the FBI's IC3, www.ic3.gov.
Thanks, Johannes. Very informative. Appreciate that. And that's all we have time for today. But before we go, I would like to remind everyone to register and attend our upcoming Intelligent Thinking AI Summit coming up on Thursday, July 17th, where we will provide a high level overview of the most impactful topics that businesses should be aware of as they incorporate AI. And we also have the Summit of Things coming up this October, 3-day virtual summit focused on IoT, AI, and other advanced technologies. So get your free passes to attend and reach out to us if you're interested in speaking or sponsoring any of our upcoming events. We have some big announcements on the way. You will not want to miss a beat. So reach out to us and learn more all at iotmktg.com. And thanks so much for joining me today, Johannes. Any final words?
Um, I'd like to say, iterate that yes, we do have some big announcements coming your way, so stay tuned. I also would like to mention that if you want to learn more about the cyber challenges of AI agents, do listen to attend my keynote speech at AI Summit, because I will explain more about what other things can go wrong with AI agents.
Thank you, Johannes, and thank you all for watching. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you, Tiffany. Bye bye.